Now, the Copyright Act is being challenged in the Constitutional Court. Blind SA is arguing that the current form of the Act makes it difficult for the visually impaired to access public works in braille without breaking the law. For more on this, I'm joined by Blind SA Vice President Christo de Klerk. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. This will be deemed as a landmark case. And, of course, give us some sense of comparison about the Act under the apartheid era and what changing it could mean for the blind or visually impaired community.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Good evening to you and to the viewers. The current copyright regime is the old apartheid time, very colonial act, Copyright Act of 1978. And that does not provide any exemptions for print disabled persons to have books converted into an accessible format such as braille or digital or DAISY format. So we are experiencing a book famine. Now, the legislature seemed to have realized our problem, and then in the Copyright Amendment Bill, which is currently being disputed and argued about in Parliament for years already, does contain a Section 19D, which provides the copyright exemptions that we're looking for. And none of the warring parties are opposed to a 19D, but we're not getting it because of the years-long dispute about that act, so about the Copyright Amendment Bill. So we are, as the Americans would say, collateral in the battle. We therefore maintain that the Copyright Act of 1978 is unconstitutional, and on those grounds we approached the High Court of Gauteng on the 21st of September last year, and we got an order granted declaring the Act unconstitutional, and we also were granted our claim that Section 19D should be read in as an interim relief until government can fix the unconstitutionality. But because the Act was declared unconstitutional, the Constitutional Court still had to ratify them. So we went to the Constitutional Court yesterday, putting our case there. Judgment is being reserved, and we are optimistically waiting for our judgment.
And it's been a long wait. 5 years after it was first introduced, the bill is still before the National Assembly, and there are various challenges. Speak to us about some of them.
Yes, well, you know, the bill has been argued about for 5 years, but I mean, our battle has been going on forever. My own involvement in this battle is since the year 2005. And the challenges we are experiencing is that we have, as I mentioned earlier, a book famine. A sighted person can go to a library, take out the book and read it, or buy a book and read it. We first have to get copyright permission, so I may buy a book and submit it to a braille production house to have the book converted into braille, but then they first have to obtain copyright permission for that to be done. That can take long. Well, sometimes it doesn't take long, but it can take long. And I am not exaggerating when I say that 90% of the time we do not get copyright permission, so that book then just stays inaccessible. The other issue we have, the current Act does not allow cross-border exchange. So even if a book is available in accessible format already, as is often the case, then we still need to recreate the wheel, as it were, because it is not available to us. So at great expense of time and money, we have to reinvent the wheel, as I say. To give you an example, to convert an average novel into braille, if we are not lucky enough to get an electronic copy of the book from the publishers, it could take 28 days, and the master copy could cost around 24,000 rand. If we get the first prize, and that is an electronic copy from publishers, that would halve the time and halve the cost. But it is still a tremendous amount of money, considering that the book is already available elsewhere. So we believe that if we get our order from court and we get government to ratify the Marrakesh Treaty, these obstacles will disappear, and we will have access to vast numbers of books, more than we have access to at the moment. Currently, we have access in South Africa to less than 0.5% of publications in accessible format.
So,
Apologies for the noise. There's a helicopter going over my house.
yeah, I hear it, but perhaps let's still try to speak. In its current form, how does the Copyright Act now deepen the risk of perhaps falling foul of, or being on the wrong side of the law?
Well, under the current law, if we should make copies of books, we are made criminals. It does happen that you sometimes really need a text if you're a student or in your profession. And I have to confess, we have done that. That we borrow a book, or buy a book, and then make it into accessible format. But that's not allowed. That makes us criminals. Not just that, it also exposes us to a civil suit.
So what are you essentially hoping will happen at this point of this matter?
Well, our case was heard yesterday, and I listened to the proceedings, and I was thrilled to hear that, from the questions the judges asked, you can sort of, know what their thinking is. And it was clear from what the judges said that they think that we have been waiting an unreasonably long time, and that they have to assist us in as short as possible a time. There was argument about, we are applying for the reading in of Section 19D to make the Act of 1978 constitutional in the meantime. Another advocate argued that we should have used another approach, although they are not opposed to us getting the copyright exemption. So the judges are going away then to consider the best, the most expedient, and the fastest time to do it. So I'm very optimistic that the judges are going to grant us an order which will let us soon have a copyright exemption, and that the Marrakesh Treaty that came into existence 8 years ago already will at last be ratified by our government. And if that happens, we will have access to almost floodgates of books in accessible format.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. All the best, of course. And Blind SA Vice President Christo de Klerk speaking to the copyright era of the apartheid era and the impact that it's having on the visually impaired. Still to